Check your gear and weapons. We go soon. Enemy soldier incoming.
Sorry, hairball.
Cheers, you slag.
Enough training. Now we face the enemy for real.
Done and dusted.
Yo, y'all got Mike.
What's up, homie?
What's up, what's up? Let's do it.
This shit, I'm down to do whatever, homie.
Resurgents. Survive until they get redeployed. Eliminate targets.
Let's try to get to this train.
Mark a drop point for your squad.
Get
Lead
it.
them in.
Whoa, which one we going to?
The train.
Oh, bet.
Shit, they jumped and went to that. Alright, fuck it, turn around. Go over here where they going, fuck it. Are they splitting up, though? Alright, I'm gonna go over here.
There we go. I can hear a hell of a lot better. My TV is up too damn loud.
Enemy.
Hostile recon deployed. Enemy dropping into the AO. Got gas moving in. Squad mates redeployed. Well done. Enemy destroyed. Use your attack map to hunt down the rest of them.
Hello? Chinese food, right? Yeah, come.
Good kill. Marking the rest of that squad on your attack map. Get hunting.
ATV marked. Need mid-caliber rounds.
A deserter left your squad. We'll redeploy you faster to make up for it. You have reinforcements inbound.
nothing in here? What the?
Shotgun here!
Hostile UAV in this sector. Loadout drop headed your way. Gas is inbound.
Moving here. Loadout marked.
Head to the safe zone now.
That was pure fucking bullshit.
Let me let you in on a little secret here. All of these trading gurus have it backwards. They'll tell you to follow complicated strategies, like wake up at 5:30 in the morning, watch the news 24/7, or be an expert at technical analysis. And as someone who used to follow this advice, all of this stuff can and does work. Yet after nearly 3 decades of trading, I've discovered a much, much simpler way. In fact, not only have all these folks used it to make hundreds or thousands of dollars, sometimes in a matter of hours or even minutes, I'm going to show it to you right now. Why? Because you only need 70 minutes a day. Then you can spend the rest of the day doing whatever you like playing as many rounds of golf as you wish, taking your spouse to any 5-star restaurant, or picking your kids up from school. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The first step is to be available from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then all you do is spot a market reversal and place one trade. That's it. Now, what are market reversals? It's a sneaky little tactic used by Wall Street They practically manipulate a stock to move in a certain direction. And if you know how to piggyback that, you can make trades with pinpoint accuracy. In fact, all of the people you're seeing on the screen are trading consistently using this method. Like David, he never traded before, and he made close to $1,300 in his pajamas 2 days in a row. Glenn made $47,000 in just 1 month, and Blake made $2,500 yesterday. And now, you can spot these trade setups too, because not only have I designed a proprietary technology that spots market reversals, I've put together a free case study detailing step by step how to use this trading strategy. All you need to do is click the link below this video.
Book compendium of the Emerald Tablets has brought such clarity and further insight to many about this great mystery, not the least of which was the featured character and entity sometimes called Top, sometimes Thought. We'll say Thought today. Let's begin there. Let's talk about this being, I would say, from my perspective, was and is quite an enigmatic character. And I'm still trying to understand just who Thought was and what he was trying to teach us. And by the way, I find it quite curious and perhaps synchronistic that Thought of both closely resembles the actual word taught and thought. Is that any accident?
There's no accidents, there's no coincidences. The actual word thought comes from go. He's the first intelligencer. He's the first person that was given a mission by his father, Thought, also known as Enki in the Sumerian tablets, to go out and raise high levels of civilization around the planet, which he did. He took a crew with him when he did this, and his job was to do this after a great flood that occurred over 36,000 years ago. In the opening scene of the Emerald Tablets, which was written by him himself, he states that the waters were finally starting to recede and the mountains were coming back up. People that had survived were coming out of the caves, and that's when his dad told him to go on the mission that ye know of. When they got to this great ship, they ascended into the sky until Earth disappeared, and then they descended on the land of Kim, where it's the first place that they decided to re-kickstart civilization on this planet.
Amazing. I obviously did not know that background, but I keep in mind immediately, and I agree, there are no accidents, indeed. Well, the abilities that Thoth possessed, including the ability to materialize out of pure thought, to use sound to move things and to build things like the pyramids of Egypt, and perhaps most perplexing, his ability to use technology to live perhaps 1,000 years. Maybe where did all this come from?
These beings are super advanced people. I mean, they are arguably a million years ahead of us. So if you look at where we came from, now space travel, and sending remote control cars to Mars and to other moons in our solar system, imagine now 1 million years from now. I mean, the technology we're going to have is totally sick. We're going to be able to live for probably tens of thousands of years. We go on our path to take the right journey. So these people, obviously, being that they had started many years before us, had developed spiritual technology and hard technology. So they had the hard tech and the spiritual tech, and they were able to combine the two together. They really had figured out the keys to some of the mysteries of the universe and ether of space-time, and were able to combine it with hard technology, and they incorporate it into their own bodies as well. So it's an incredible feat that they were able to do. And Thoth talks about materializing matter from light, materializing matter from vocalizations, from different types of cymatic frequencies. As a matter of fact, in the Emerald Tablets, he gives out several names. These aren't names of people. These are actually frequencies. They look like names, but they're frequencies. And when you utter these frequencies, you alter your reality tunnel. And you're supposed to use this in times of need, desperation, and so forth, if you want to correct the path that you're on. But it's all about frequencies, cymatics, vibrations, and photonic energy.
This is what Tesla said to not.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Wow. Billy, what's the best evidence that Thoth was actually a flesh and blood being? I mean, it seems we're really talking about a soul frequency that was, and I say possibly is, currently able to move about different bodies. Could this be the case? Was Thoth a walk-in at times?
It's very possible. He could be multidimensional. I mean, he often talked about being able to put portals into other dimensions and also visit other planets. One thing about him is that he had talked about developing these avatar bodies. So I believe that he was a physical being because he would transfer his consciousness from one avatar body to the next. So he would go into an avatar body, which is just like in the movie Avatar, unbelievably, a humanoid body, and he would walk. He said he would walk amongst men. And then while he was in that body, the other body he left, he would put the halls of Amenki underneath the Great Pyramid. And these chambers, which they just found, chambers about a mile deep underneath the Great Pyramid, they're really there. This is just recent discovery. And then the halls of Amenki, these rejuvenation chambers, and he would put the body in there for 100 years while he walked amongst men and did whatever else he did. Then he would come back. He claimed to have done this 100 times. So that's 100,000 years alone, just 100,000 years of him transferring from body to body, walking amongst men. Other evidence that shows that he was a physical person was the fact that he had ruled, documented now in the Egyptian hieroglyphs, ruled over Egypt for 14,000 years, the ancient past. He also was seen by people in Mesoamerica. When he left Africa, he took Olmecs with him, African Olmecs, and they went and kickstarted the Teotihuacan civilization in Mexico, where he was seen by people like the Mayans and the Aztecs and everything else. And he was called Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl.
How did they recognize him?
Well, they didn't recognize him as far as knowing that he was Thoth, but he came there with his magic science, which translates into advanced technology and his architecture. And he was there, he became their god. In other words, he never wanted to be called a god, but they deified him because they couldn't, a less advanced civilization, when they look at somebody that's that high-tech and that advanced, they automatically believe it's a god. So they became cargo cults. The Mayans, the Aztecs, they became cargo cults of the Teotihuacans, who were an advanced Atlantean civilization that came across from Africa, led by Thoth, and started building an advanced civilization. The Mayans actually never built anything in Mexico. The Mayans came and inherited what the Teotihuacan had already left behind. And then that's when they deified Thoth as a god. But Quetzalcoatl, they call him Viracocha, he's Kukulkan, he's Lord of Cali, and all these different names. People have seen him, they've described him. He kickstarted that civilization, not only there, but in other places around the world. We're talking everywhere from Cambodia, all over Asia, Australia. If you go to Australia, there's etchings of Thoth from Egypt in Australia into clay that was hardened in Australia. There's an Egyptian temple partially buried in Carryong 9 in Australia that has Egyptian hieroglyphs that date back tens of thousands of years, where it shows that Egyptians were leaving Egypt and going to Australia to talk to the Aborigine people to get knowledge and wisdom from the Aborigines, who were the first people that they claim were here and that came from the Pleiades. So it's just the story is huge. And when I went to Egypt in 2014, the story of two brothers going to Australia and one dying from a snake bite, and the brother bringing him back was the finishing of the story was in Egypt when I got there. So it was an amazing circle, closed circle, showing that they had really gone and come back before sometimes was still there.
Do you think perhaps love is still here?
Oh, absolutely. This entity, this being, is so amazing in his travels. He's in his own work. He says that he's gone from planet to planet, watching different humanoids, civilizations rise and fall. That takes a very long time to watch a whole civilization rise and fall. So he's talking about cycle of time and how everything has a cycle, and no matter where you go, all cycles are the same. There's no one cycle in the universe, which is like the second law of thermodynamics and entropy, where things are in an organized state, you become a disorganized state, and then at some point it resets and it starts over again. So he's gone from planet to planet doing this. This is many worlds I've traveled, and I've seen many of them on their worlds, rising as high as the stars in the night, falling as low as in the depths. So he's seen all of this with his own eyes, and it's very likely that he's still walking around. I mean, the only thing that can stop a being that advanced is some type of an accident that can destroy the body, I guess. But if you have the capability of storing your consciousness on something and putting it into something else, you can continue on.
Well, isn't that what's going on right now with us humans tinkering with uploading our DNA? I find that interesting. As you're talking about this, so many of the questions are on my mind, but I guess the first one would be in terms of this, what I would refer to at this point as a soul blueprint, this phone. What is its purpose in all of this? Is this for his own observation, or is there, is this a service to self or service to others?
He had raised himself to such a high level of consciousness that his whole main purpose, and the only reason why he got to this level of consciousness and ability is because of service to others. His whole main purpose is for service to others. He never wanted to be called a god, never tried to claim that he was any type of a god. As a matter of fact, when he descended on the land of Kim in his ship and he opened the doors, the barbarians came to attack him. He raised his staff and sent out a ray of vibration, stopping so it's going around toward him, which means there's some type of advanced weapon that had the ability to stun them and stop them. Then he went and released them and began to talk peace with them. And then after he showed them some of his advanced technology, they groveled at his feet, and he picked them up and said, "No, we are the sons of Atlantis, and we're here to raise the high level of civilization. We're going to give you language, we're going to give you technology, we're going to give you architecture, so forth and so on." So again, we have more evidence that he had a perfect opportunity here to say, "I'm your God, bow to me," so forth and so on. But when they groveled at his feet, he stopped and looked and said, "No, basically, we're the same. I'm just more advanced, and I'm here to teach you." So his main purpose is service to others, and he's gone all around this planet, and the evidence of his architecture, because he says he built the Great Pyramid. So now you look at all the pyramids around the planet, you look at the technology we make with the structures, you start to realize we have the same architect involved in all of this handwork.
On other planets, underwater, pyramidal structure,
on
is
the moon.
quite fascinating.
Yeah, incredible.
I think about the plight of us humans, particularly us in the West. The plight, big one. Two questions, I guess. Given this plight, and given both this mission of being of service to others, we could use this entity's help now more than ever. Is there any indication, I mean, we're talking about something that seems so far out of reach of our perception, but any indication, any feeling, any talk about thought helping us?
He's helping us right now.
How so?
But also understand that the universe is a fractal holographic universe. It's a fractal matrix. And through this matrix, information can be transferred from entity or being to being. This information that he wrote down, these emerald tablets, are the complete key to life and the ability to give us the power to save ourselves and to come in unison with one another and raise to a high level of civilization again. These tablets are not just handwritten tablets for us to just casually read. They're a blueprint. And by reading them and taking down the information and absorbing that knowledge, he has now transferred a fractal of his consciousness to the person that read it. Now, thereby continuing on over and over and over again and becoming like a conscious virus that is spreading right now as we speak all over the planet. Through my work, through the work of Joe Clark and others who are working about this, and getting all these millions of people now reading these emerald tablets, finding out these discoveries, making a correlation between ancient times, metaphysics, and current quantum physics, and now, and finding out where we were and where we're supposed to be headed to. So right now, it's fractally working through all of us at this very moment.
resonate with that. As I told you off air, I was so inspired by the little that I had heard so far. Resurgents of your work, and I went and ordered it, so I have it out with me right now here in Los Angeles. So, well, as far as the Emerald Tablets are concerned, it is believed that Phil was the actual author of the text versus the scribe who translated these messages. Here's the question I want to ask in this regard. Have you found any similarity in some of the ideas that have been conveyed in the tablets as compared to the Gnostic texts, the Nag Hammadi?
The Nag Hammadi does have a couple of similarities, because the Nag Hammadi really, they're talking about the fact that religion, kind of modern religion, the way that the Bible is strict, they're actually worshiping the evil entities, they're actually worshiping Satan, and that the true power is within. And when you go back to the Emerald Tablets, which was written way before the Nag Hammadi, the Nag Hammadi contains some of those concepts possibly from the Emerald Tablets, because the Emerald Tablets, for instance, Los Angeles, talk purely about the human race, inner space, like finding the inner man, the inner power, and that divinity is both in us, through us, and out of us, and that we ourselves have the same exact power as though that any other deity that we claim to be super omnipotent, so forth and so on. We have those same powers, and we're supposed to be here to create heaven on earth, not wait till we die and then try to accept it to heaven. So Nag Hammadi, the scripts have a lot of the same beliefs, and they're trying to say, look, the enemy of the power is within you and out of you. You are basically God, because God is equal to God. And what these organizations have done is they are now, without realizing it, worse for being able to find answers.
That's interesting. Well, that could very well makes you wonder, when they're so tenacious in digging up this information, connecting dots, you have to ask yourself the question, who else knows this information that may also be on the more malevolent side of things, keeping it from us? If Phil is truly on a mission to help us all, who else might know that?
Governments of the world. If you go to Washington, D.C., go to the Library of Congress, there's two gigantic steel doors, double doors open at the Library of Congress. Those etched into the steel on the door. So, those that know it is both the same person. It's most important times it's also Mercury. They have different names on different beaches and different. So when you go etched into the steel doors of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., I think they know exactly. It's places all over the Egyptian motif in Washington, Egyptian motif in the houses, the Vatican. This is all reminiscent of they've gotten the information, they've gotten the knowledge, and they're basically using information. They're showcasing everything they know. All the angles and the different types of structures that they build to harness energy and everything else. But they're putting it in our face and hiding it in plain sight. And the average layman who's got folks on going to work, paying bills, taking care of their kids, I got to work till I can get the money to retire, and all these things, completely distracted from what's right in front of their face. We focus on it, and the elites calling on our feet, they can maintain their power over us that way.
If somehow Phil's seems like his mission should be still be here, and I think there's definitely a case to be made that he is.
As uniquely applicable to themselves. Now, there were many occasions where Casey would receive a letter from Sigma, reading his Bible when he was visited by what he called a woman with wings. The woman asked him what he wanted most out of life. He said he wanted to help others, especially sick children. Later that day, Edgar Casey's father received a letter from the school complaining about symptom points. So his father tested his spelling and was so upset about what Edgar did, he did not get out of his chair. While on the ground, his ears still ringing, 11-year-old Edgar heard the voice of a woman in the forest. She told him to lay his head down on his school and go to sleep. He wouldn't wake up. Edgar knew everything in the book, like everything. He was able to recite the book word for word. So Edgar began studying by sleeping on his books.
Yes, there's no way that works.
And by the end of the year, he was the best student in school, and everyone would up with him. As parents were starting to catch on that something was special about their son, while playing at school, Edgar suffered a spinal injury that right to Russian parables. That night while he slept, Casey recited the ingredients for an herbal cure. He said, fix his injuries. His parents had nothing to lose, so they prepared the remedy according to their son's instructions. The next morning, Edgar was cured. When Casey was a little older, he developed severe laryngitis. Doctors couldn't explain it, so Casey went to see hypnotists.
Yes, you do.
While in a trance, Casey said the issue was psychological paralysis. The hypnotist then directed Casey to increase blood flow to the area. Casey's throat turned bright red. He woke up, and he was cured. And Casey's fiancée told him that he had a gift that was given to him by God, and he should share it with the world. So Edgar Casey began performing readings twice a day on the sick and injured. In 1902, Casey gave a reading that helped define his legacy. A 5-year-old girl had been diagnosed with a brain injury. More loving news, the parents turned to Casey. He determined that she actually had a spinal injury. He suggested a vertebrae adjustment. Within a few months, she fully recovered. And then, the letters came pouring. For the next 40 years, Edgar Casey did thousands of readings out to countless people. Edgar Casey's talent wasn't limited to medical diagnosis. He made a number of predictions about future events, many of which have come true, and some of them are terrifying. 6 months before the 1929 stock market crash, Casey warned his investor friends to sell their stocks. His friends that ignored him went broke. In 1931, he predicted that the worldwide economy would recover in the spring of 1933. It did. In January 1934, Casey predicted that Hitler would rise in power and reign over Germany. Hitler became Führer in August of that year, and Casey said that Hitler would remain in power until he was overthrown by an outside war. In 1935, Casey predicted the outbreak of World War II. He saw an alliance between Austria, Germany, and Japan, but said the war would involve many nations. He also said the United States would finally enter the war in 1941. Casey predicted the deaths of FDR and JFK, and that the United States would go through a period of civil and racial unrest in the 1960s. In 1980, Casey said a portion of temples may yet be discovered under the sea in what is known as Bimini, off the coast of Florida. Expect the rising of Atlantis in 68. And sure enough, 30 years later, in 1968, the Bimini Road was discovered in the Bahamas.
So Atlantis was in the Bahamas?
If you believe Edgar Casey, it was.
I believe.
He described Atlantis as being an ancient civilization of equal-sized timber and having superior technology. He said that Atlantis disappeared somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean some 10,000 years ago due to a large flood. We now know that every civilization has a flood, and in all of them, the Great Flood occurred 10,000 years ago. When the Soviet Union was at the height of its power, Casey said, from Russia comes the hope of the world, not in respect to communism, but freedom. It will take years to crystallize, but Russia will once again be free. In 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved and abandoned communism. In 1934, not much was known about the Jewish sect called the Essenes, but Casey described the sect in detail, and his descriptions were determined to be accurate. He said their records and documents would come to light, and 12 years later, the Dead Sea Scrolls, written by the Essenes, were discovered. He predicted the El Nino and La Nina weather events before anyone knew about them. In the 1930s, he said the 44th president of the United States would be black.
What number was Obama?
44.
He did it again.
And on January 1st, 1945, Casey said he would be buried in 4 days. His wife didn't like this prediction.
I'm afraid to ask what happened.
He died of a stroke 3 days later. He was buried in his hometown, just as he predicted. But the sleeping prophet's most disturbing predictions are yet to come. According to Casey, the Earth is in for a catastrophe that will reshape continents and rewrite borders around the world.
Nastiest stuff I've seen from the government this year, and I can't believe people haven't even noticed it. Since January, the government was supposed to give all Americans under 65 $6,400 in subsidies to cover their essential expenses and put food on their tables. But they haven't even talked about it because they want to keep all the funds on their side. Now that it is expiring, they are letting people know about it. This is probably one of the sneakiest and most disgusting things the U.S. government has ever done, and I don't want them to get away with this massive scam. So if you just click the link below and make a 2-minute phone call, you will get the $6,400 subsidy instantaneously. Remember, it expires in 13 hours, so don't let them get away with this. Claim your subsidy before it's too late.
1936, Edgar Casey predicted that the world would undergo a pole shift between 16 and 20 degrees. And this would happen when both Mount Etna in Italy and Mount Pelée in Martinique erupt together. When that happens, we'll have 90 days to evacuate the coastlines.
Are those volcanoes still active?
Oh, they are. Mount Etna just erupted a few months ago, and scientists at Mount Pelée say that the seismic activity there is above baseline. And if the poles do shift, as Edgar Casey predicts, the world map is going to look very different. Africa will be divided into 3 parts. The Nile will widen, and a brand new waterway will split the continent. As the Red Sea grows, Cairo will eventually disappear into the sea. Asia is already very seismic and will suffer from dramatic changes. Land will be covered from the Philippines to Japan by the ocean. As the Pacific plate shifts, the islands of Japan will sink, leaving only a few small islands. Taiwan and most of Korea will be completely lost in the sea. The entire coast of China will be pushed inland hundreds of miles. The population of India will be told not to seek higher ground in the interior of the country due to bubbling land. Instead, they'll have to head to the Himalayas, the high mountains of Tibet and Nepal, to find refuge. Antarctica will no longer be covered in ice, but will once again become fertile. Australia will lose nearly 25% of its land due to coastal flooding. The Adelaide area will become a new sea. The Simpson and Houston deserts will become farming land. New Zealand will actually grow in size and will once again connect to mainland Australia. And New Zealand will ultimately become one of the safest areas in the world.
Lucky kittens.
Europe will suffer. Most of Northern Europe will simply be gone, sunk into the sea as the tectonic plate collapses. Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Denmark disappear, eventually becoming hundreds of small islands. Most of the UK, from Scotland to the English Channel, will disappear into the ocean, but several small islands will remain. London and Birmingham will actually survive, not cities, as islands. Ireland will disappear completely except for land and high elevation. Russia will be separated from Europe by an entirely new sea. When the Caspian, Black, Kara, and Baltic seas combine, the new sea will stretch all the way to Siberia. Russia's climate will remain intact, leaving Russia to supply most of Europe's food.
Putin is gonna be king of the world.
It is already.
You make a good point.
In Canada, most of the coastline will be pushed in by 200 miles. Regions in Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and areas of Alberta will become the refugee survival center of Canada. As the North American plate buckles, the new islands of California will be created, almost 150 separate islands. The West Coast will recede east toward Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado. The Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence will join and continue from the Mississippi River all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. All coastal areas from Maine to Florida will be taken over by water and pushed inland for miles. Most of the coastal areas of Mexico will be flooded. The California Baja coast will ultimately become a series of islands. Millions of people will be displaced by this cataclysm. Billions more will be killed.
Well, that was cheaper.
Sorry about that.
When is this pole shift supposed to happen?
Well, Casey said that from the beginning.
No, we're fine.
Yeah, but NASA has detected a slight pole shift that could be a concern.
When did they detect the shift?
1998.
Yeah, damn it.
Now, to be fair, Edgar Casey has his detractors. He gave over 14,000 readings, so he's going to be right at least some of the time. It's the correct predictions that make headlines. Nobody really notices the things that Casey got wrong. Casey used expressions like perhaps and maybe and I feel that, rather than using positive declarations. This is a common technique used by strict psychics. This is known as the Barnum effect. common psychological phenomenon where people tend to accept vague descriptions as uniquely applicable to themselves. But there were many occasions where Casey would receive a letter from a sick person and do a reading for them, giving them a diagnosis. Casey didn't know that when he was in his trance, people were already dead. Now, Casey supporters defend this by saying, well, if they had applied the cure while they were alive, they wouldn't have died. Okay, sure, but if Casey was talking to spirits or communing with the universe or whatever he did, the universe should have given him a heads up. Every time Casey got something wrong, there's always a convenient excuse. For example, Casey gave the location for buried pirate treasure, which sent people scrambling all over the world looking for it.
No treasure.
No, Casey supporters said it was possible the ghosts of Native Americans or pirates were playing tricks on them.
Well, the ghost pirates are pretty sneaky.
Pirate? Was Edgar Casey a psychic? I don't really know. Nobody does. Edgar Casey was never exposed as a hoaxer, and I believe that he saw whatever it is that he saw. But a recent poll surveyed thousands of American adults with similar income, education, and academic performance, and found that 50% of people believe in some form of ESP or psychic phenomena. What the poll also found is that people who do not believe in psychics tend to be more structured and analytical in their thinking.
Kids.
And the people who do believe are more emotional and creative in their thinking.
Hippies.
Well, the poll is quick to point out that believers were gullible and lacked critical thinking skills. Now, that may be true to an extent, but the poll also found, this is important, that those quote-unquote gullible believers were far happier in their lives and had much lower levels of stress than skeptics. When we talk about psychic phenomena or the supernatural aspects of religion,
61.
these are things that defy scientific explanation, but nobody can deny that these things provide solace to the bereaved, hope to the unfortunate, and structure to an existence that is chaotic at best. Does the supernatural exist? I don't know. I would agree that most psychics are frauds taking advantage of it. But Edgar Casey never took a penny. He really wanted to help people. Now, whether he was a real psychic. In 1924, people with this disease have difficulty speaking, moving, staying awake. Listen, you can do that.
Sounds to me like some hippie stuff.
A remnant of a less evolved species. People in 3906 can't even imagine themselves acting like we do today. And Paul Enoch finds the future people very strange. He says they act like carefree children. But you have to admit, there's a part of you, maybe even a large part, that would like to go back to some moment in your childhood when all your needs were met, where you had no fear, no envy, no anxiety. As Enoch's friend Stefan says, all these things that you view as strange, who is to say that they are childish instead of divine? Interesting point. But Enoch wonders, how will these people survive an outside threat, like contact with aliens? Well, Stefan says they've already been contacted many times, and it turned out fine. The humans in the future are aware of intelligent beings living in the solar system and around the galaxy, but they aren't interested in communication with us. Instead, they prefer to study us from a distance. But Stefan does admit they have intervened with the human race on a few occasions, like when our species was close to self-imposed extinction. Enoch learns that these extraterrestrial beings experience their own kind of enlightenment.
Needlework.
Needlework.
What I see.
So aliens leave us alone to walk our own path. When Paul Enoch was a young man, he fell in love with a girl from his village named Anna. Over 300 pages, and it's full of details. There are hundreds of names, places, dates. Even something that sounds like a holodeck. I can't come close to covering everything here, but I'll link to the book if you want to check it out. If you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, no sponsor, it's actually free to read. The second option is that while in his coma, Paul Enoch experienced what he thought was reality, but was nothing more than vivid dreams.
You can dream in a coma?
Well, it depends on the illness and injury of the brain, but people definitely can and do. And if he was dreaming for a year, that's plenty of time to create a richly detailed vision of a future world. But there's one more theory we have to consider, and it's the theory that I believe. It's that Paul Amadeus Enoch never existed. Even though the story of Paul Enoch is not that well known, it's been covered in a few blogs and podcasts and videos, and in all of them, the same photo of Paul is used. It's the photo I used in the thumbnail. It's this one here. But what's never mentioned is that this is actually the mugshot of Daniel Tohill, who was arrested for according to the leakers, the Mars Observer was still out there and running just fine. In fact, it was taking pictures of the face and all kinds of other weird objects on Mars. But even if NASA had those pictures, they couldn't show them publicly, especially if they showed the face was an artificial construction. NASA continued to claim that the face was nothing more than a pile of rocks. But since they couldn't take a photo to prove it, they did the next best thing. They created one. 5 years after the Mars Observer fiasco, NASA launched a new probe called Mars Global Surveyor.
3, 2, 1, we have ignition. And we have liftoff. This is Mars Global Surveyor as America begins its journey back to the Red Planet.
And even though there were newer, better cameras available, NASA insisted on using the old ones. And once again, NASA didn't want to take pictures of Cydonia or the face. But after public pressure, they finally agreed to take a few pictures. Then NASA finally made a big announcement. On April 5th, 1998, NASA finally released a highly detailed picture of the face on Mars.
What the is this?
What was released was a grainy, noise-filled image of the face in bad lighting, bad weather, and with multiple filters applied. That night on the Art Bell program, Coughlin and his team were upset. Bell said that from his perspective, the image looked like something my kitty would scratch up in her cat box. And from that moment forward, it would be forever known as the cat box image. But it looked like this image was deliberately manipulated by NASA. Len Fleming, a NASA contractor, went back to the source data and tried to reproduce the cat box image. At first, he couldn't. But eventually, after applying 14 different Photoshop filters, he was able to do it. And he realized that this could not be done by accident.
JPL removed most of the total variation in the original image that gives the observer the visual cues to the real three-dimensional shape of the object. They added false visual cues to give the object its rough, jumbled appearance, inadvertently falsifying the appearance of the surrounding terrain as well. The cat box is not a poor enhancement, as it is often called. It is a crude but very effective fraud perpetrated by employees or contractors to the United States government. Even if the face is proven to be completely natural, this is inexcusable misconduct and a gross abuse of power. If the face ultimately is proven to be artificial, the cat box will certainly come to be regarded as the greatest, most malicious, and most destructive scientific hoax of all time.
Ever since the first color images came back from Mars, they've always been suspicious. The colors were dominated by this weird orange haze. NASA said this is because of all the carbon dioxide and red dust in the atmosphere. Well, a carbon dioxide atmosphere would still be blue. Not a deep blue like on Earth, but a grayish blue. But the images from Mars show the sky as this weird reddish green color. So what's going on? These photos make the surface of Mars look like a weird alien world. But it's not an accurate representation of color. Nothing is so uniformly one color like this. For some reason, before releasing images of Mars, they ran the images through an orange filter. Now, in the 1990s, nobody would really question this. But modern digital photography software like Photoshop can tell if a single color is applied to an image uniformly. This is a simple calculation for software. It's how white balancing is achieved in photography and video. It's such an easy calculation that current versions of Photoshop give you a one-click way to solve for false color. The function is called, well, autocolor. So look at this early, very blurry image of Mars. That looks like Mars. Well, the version of Mars that's been fed to us for years. But remember, Photoshop can correct for false color. If you autocolor this, right, now that's a very different image. Let's do a few more. NASA eventually learned that their orange filter technique was easily spotted, so recent pictures of Mars no longer have the weird orange tint. Now even NASA's pictures show a blue-gray sky and a lot of different colors in the landscape. But why would NASA not want us to know that Mars has blue skies? Some say it's to discourage people from wanting to visit Mars. The more alien it looks, the better. So, Mars had oceans and a thick atmosphere and could have supported life. If intelligent life did evolve on Mars, And the face and other artifacts are not piles of rocks, but are actually ruins of a long-lost society. But we have to ask, what happened to that ancient civilization? Well, the answer to that question could be the reason that the governments of the world have lied to us about Mars for so many years. Because there is evidence, scientific evidence, that millions of years ago, the planet Mars was devastated by a massive global nuclear war. Curiosity rover arrived on Mars in August 2012 and started analyzing samples from the surface. NASA scientists were expecting to find soil containing heavily oxidized iron, which they did. But what nobody expected to find was evidence of a massive nuclear war. Chemical analysis revealed that the top layer of Martian soil contains a large amount of xenon-129. There's only one known process that creates this particular isotope of xenon: the detonation of nuclear weapons. Now, over the course of 70 years, over 1,000 nuclear tests have been conducted on Earth. And every time a nuclear bomb is detonated, the explosion leaves behind small traces of xenon-129. The amount of xenon-129 in Martian soil is 2.5 times higher than Earth. Dr. John Brandenburg is a former NASA physicist and a well-known Mars researcher. He was the scientist who accompanied Richard Hoagland to NASA to present their findings about the face in Cydonia. Dr. Brandenburg believes that a humanoid civilization lived on Mars and died on Mars.
I've shown this to several nuclear weapons experts, and they have affirmed that this is nuclear weapon signature. There is no other process that can create such a xenon spectrum.
For so much xenon to be deposited on the surface, the nuclear weapon would have to be the size of the Empire State Building, but with an energy equivalent to 1,000 megatons. For comparison, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima was 20 kilotons. So we're talking an explosion 50,000 times more powerful. Dr. Brandenburg found two hotspots on Mars where radiation levels are higher than anywhere else. And right in between those hotspots is Cydonia, the location of the face, the pyramid, and the other structures. Dating the isotopes places the explosions somewhere between 150 and 300 million years ago. Mars was, at one time, a blue planet like Earth, covered in oceans and a thick atmosphere. But nobody knows for sure how Mars lost its atmosphere. A nuclear explosion of this size would answer that question. Now, this is a frightening theory, but it gets even more disturbing. If an intelligent race created the face and other structures on Mars, they wouldn't have been that technologically advanced. They were maybe an Iron Age civilization. Those people would not have the technology to create such a devastating nuclear weapon. This means the weapons were detonated by someone else.
Don't say aliens. Don't say aliens.
Aliens.
Oh no.
At the time of this event on Mars, the most advanced creatures on Earth were reptiles. Dinosaurs hadn't even evolved yet. Maybe whoever destroyed Mars ignored us. Reptiles wouldn't pose much of a threat to them. But what if they return? Another theory is that intelligent life on Mars did reach an advanced level of technology, advanced enough to destroy themselves in a nuclear apocalypse. But before that catastrophic event, a small group of these humanoids escaped off-world. So who were those Martians that managed to escape annihilation? Well, they're us.
Hello? Hey, baby. No, I'm sitting here playing the game. What you doing? Oh, nice. Oh, what? We got to sit down. What's up? Oh. What? Well. Damn. Shit, that's what's up. Right. Oh. Can't beat that. Shit. I'm like, dude, playing again. Yeah. Right. Wait a minute. I'm with you. Baby. Baby.
So who were those Martians that managed to escape annihilation? Well, they're us. For a show like this, the exploration of Mars is a gift that started giving in the 1960s and just keeps on giving. We've got ancient civilizations, government cover-ups, alien invasions, a nuclear apocalypse, and more conspiracies than I can count. But how much of all this is true? Well, I can't really debunk most of this episode because, well, Mars is another planet. It's not like we can go see for ourselves, at least not yet. The flow of information comes from a single source, the United States government.
Well, assume everything they say is a lie.
Well, that's a pessimistic point of view.
What can I tell you? I've been hurt before.
But let me give you some perspective. First, every single object on Mars that looks artificial could be attributed to pareidolia. That's a word you'll hear a lot from NASA. Pareidolia is the human tendency to find meaning in random stimuli, like the imperfections of a piece of wood that look like a polar bear, or a stadium that looks like a UFO.
Or a cloud shaped like a crab kid.
Right.
Really, crab kid.
Seeing animals is common, but the most common thing we see? Faces.
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 What I say?
In fact, if you look at the wiki page for pareidolia, the picture of the face on Mars is the main example.
Propaganda.
What do you mean? Wikipedia is biased.
You're adorable.
But is the face on Mars an optical illusion? Or is there something there? Well, plenty of scientists, NASA scientists, thought there was something there, though we don't hear much from them anymore. Most scientists think it's just an illusion. When NASA released their detailed picture of the face, which showed it as a pile of rocks, they thought they put the conspiracy to bed. The problem is, NASA does alter images. In fact, they alter every image they release to the public.
And now Chris Martinez is introducing us to two of the artists behind some of the most iconic space art in the world.
NASA says this is to make the images easier to understand, or to make them more visually appealing.
Even NASA uses filters on their internet.
They do. Now, I don't like that NASA has artists on staff to Photoshop images, but I understand that some photos have to be adjusted to make them more digestible to the public. But there are some really weird NASA Photoshops. Here's the famous photo of the Earth taken from Apollo 17. And here's a 3D model of the Earth released by Google and the US Navy. The model is supposed to be mathematically perfect, but the land masses don't line up, like not even close. Here are examples of NASA copy-pasting clouds on a picture of the Earth. The copy-paste technique has been used on Mars images too. These are from the Curiosity rover. Now, maybe there are good reasons for faking these images, though I can't think of any. But if you fake one image, we can't trust any of them. So when you see this picture of Mars, people say this looks exactly like Devon Island, the uninhabited island.
NASA Public Relations, this is Jerry.
Hey Jerry, I wanted to talk to you about this picture from Curiosity. This looks like Devon Island, but with an orange filter on.
No, that's Mars.
Yeah, but
it's the Red Planet.
Yeah, no, I know it's called the Red Planet, but I'm pretty sure this picture of Devon Island got in accidentally.
No, that's not Devon Island. That's Mars.
Okay, then why is this animal hiding behind the rocks?
That's not an animal. That's just a rock.
Okay, but that sure does look like an Arctic lemming.
What the hell is an Arctic lemming?
Well, an Arctic lemming is a type of small rodent that hides in the rocks all over Devon Island. Hello?
You know what? If you and your stupid YouTube channel, you can take your Arctic lemming and shove it straight up your ass.
How much you trust NASA is up to you, but I wouldn't trust them 100%. But some people go to the extreme with the Mars images.
Now, below this eagle is a whole city of Terror one. There's the parrot again. Now, if you're looking at this area directly below the crater that has the eagle in it.
They see parrots and dolphins and all sorts of things in the pictures. Now, I don't see these things unless they're specifically pointed out to me. I think most of those images are a stretch, but I don't need anyone to hold my hand with a picture of the face. That one I can clearly see. As for Richard Hoagland, you've heard me talk about him a lot, especially on the After Files live stream. He was always one of my favorite guests on Art Bell. Very well-spoken guy, very entertaining. But he has plenty of detractors. He's been a favorite target of sites like Bad Astronomy and Skeptical Inquirer. He's been accused of exaggerating his credentials and his experience. But let me come to Richard's defense a little bit. All scientists do that. Richard Hoagland might be wrong about some things, and I think he's probably wrong about most things. But he's provided a valuable service, and it's something I don't think he gets enough credit for. He got millions of regular folks interested in the space program, and because of that, he was able to sway NASA into taking pictures of Mars that we might not have ever seen. And I can show this to you. He watched those, specifically watchdogs with access. He believed in those thoughts. As for Dr. John Brandenburg and his very broad Mars theory, Dr. Brandenburg is well respected and well credentialed. His earliest papers on the Mars theory was that a nuclear event happened naturally on the planet. There's a uranium mine in Gabon, Africa, which shows evidence of nuclear fission occurring naturally. So it's not a stretch to think this would happen on Mars. But after a while, Dr. Brandenburg claimed that what happened on Mars did not happen naturally. The only way we see isotopes of xenon 129 is from the discharge of a nuclear weapon. Now, I've read both sides of this argument, and I'm not sure who's right. But Dr. Brandenburg's Mars nuclear war theory was rejected for peer review. But that's mainstream scientists know they're not always correct. They always have an agenda. Right or wrong, it's an interesting theory that deserves attention and study, not ridicule. But you can't talk about Mars without being ridiculed. Yes, almost everything we see in photographs from Mars can be explained, but there are a couple of things that can't. We've sent mission after mission to Mars, and I can't for the life of me understand why we haven't sent a rover through Cydonia and right up to the object that's supposed to be a face. NASA says there's nothing there, so it would be a waste of resources. And with all due respect to NASA, their resources come from we the people, and we the people want to know what the face on Mars really is. Now, until we have close-up photographs of Cydonia, close-up photographs that we can trust are undoctored, the story about the face on Mars is not going away.
And not as long as it generates clicks, eh?
True. And look, I completely agree that the chances of the face being an artificial structure are almost zero. Isn't zero. If there's even the slightest chance that the face of the pyramids were created by the civilization on Mars, we deserve to know. But more importantly, the people who built those monuments.
This time I chose to meet just the most conservative stage. Under its high rate of fire contact, is too soon. Once again, our fighters will pass by ships. It will make a big difference if you look at this conference. It is very good if your project obstacles, battery explosion, large motion traffic to attack the weapons. It perfectly compensates with small attack range abilities. In addition, the similar assembly is also very powerful this month. At the beginning, it can fire two aggressive shaking bullets to attack the enemy. Attack rate is fast, which can be massive fighters. As the weapon level increases, the number and power of bullets fired by our enemy also increase. You see now, our bullets fire two speeds as bullets fire more aggressive shells. Not only that, our laser beam gun also has the ability to laser diffraction and navigate to small we hit after it was detected, but within a day, it vanished again. One thing is certain, this is no ordinary Dead Star, or like any other of the 2 million objects that the research team surveyed. So what could it be? Researchers believe this rare discovery could belong to a category of signals coming from the Milky Way, known as Galactic Center Radio Transients, or GCRTs. Only 3 other objects are in this category. It took 10 years to find them, and scientists are still trying to figure out what they are. But before we jump to conclusions about the signals possibly coming from aliens, it's important to remember that technological signals would cover a much narrower range of frequencies, like our broadcast
broadcast radios do. It's quite possible that GCRTs and neutron stars, pulsars that are orbiting each other, so that a radio signal from one star eclipses another, or it simply could be dying pulsars running out of energy while emitting irregular radio casts. A new telescope, named the Square Kilometre Array, might be able to figure out this mystery. The array is being built in Australia and South Africa and should be completed in 2028. We may think we haven't heard anything yet, that there is no concrete evidence of a signal from an advanced civilization, but it doesn't mean we're not getting any signals from space. In fact, we might just be listening to a signal from an advanced civilization right now. Scientists have recently discovered an object that's been sending radio signals towards Earth since at least 1988, but we didn't know about it until now. For the last 35 years, strange blasts of energy from an object 15,000 light years away have been hitting the Earth in varying levels of brightness and have occurred like clockwork, approximately every 20 minutes, sometimes lasting for 5 minutes. Scientists originally thought the strange radio signals could be coming from a magnetar. Magnetars have exceptionally strong magnetism. Signals coming from our planet might be long gone before anyone had a chance to make it here. This is unless an extraterrestrial civilization was able to bend space and time at will using wormholes. That said, there's no way to be certain why or how an extraterrestrial civilization might choose to communicate. They could use methods or technologies beyond our current understanding. They could also have motivations for staying silent. Projects like the Breakthrough Listen initiative are currently scanning the skies with unprecedented sensitivity, looking for any signs of extraterrestrial broadcasts. According to a new study that was recently done, some of the strongest radio signals that were sent out may have reached far-off stars by now. And apparently, if those stars happen to be home to extraterrestrial life that could respond to our signals, some astronomers believe we could be hearing back from them as early as 2029. When you think about all the ways you can make contact with another planet far, far away, radio signals might not be the best thing for an intelligent civilization to send out. Because you wouldn't know who you're sending this signal out to, and an extraterrestrial civilization would probably only do this as a distress call, maybe even as a warning. An intelligent civilization looking for life somewhere else in the universe might not go about announcing their presence at all. While it's speculative to assume how extraterrestrial civilizations might attempt to contact Earth, since we've no direct evidence of such civilizations, there are several methods scientists believe might be plausible based on our current understanding of science and technology.
Most difficult countries to pinpoint was America in 1914, when you started inventions.
If we exclude radio waves, several other potential methods emerge by which an interstellar civilization might attempt to contact us, based on a combination of current scientific understanding and speculative concepts. Optical signals. Lasers or other powerful sources of light can send focused and coherent optical signals across interstellar distances. Such a beam, especially if it were pulsed in some set pattern, could indicate intensity. However, laser light still cannot break the speed limit of light. Physical probes. Sending automated spacecraft or probes to other star systems is a concept we've already started to explore with the Voyager 1 and 2 probes. An advanced civilization might deploy probes designed to establish contact or relay information. Lately, we've seen a lot on the news. Objects discovered by fighter pilots that have no explanation. Neutrino communication. Given that neutrinos pass through most matter without interaction, they could theoretically be used to send messages across vast distances, though the technology required to modulate and detect neutrino signals would be quite advanced. Gravitational waves. With our newfound ability to detect gravitational waves, it's conceivable that a highly advanced civilization might use them for communication. They would need the capability to produce controlled events that generate detectable presence, possibly within organisms already present on the planet. State manipulation, modifying the output or appearance of their own star by causing intentional dimming or brightening in a manner detectable by other civilizations could be a way to send a beacon of their presence. We talked a lot about strange signals coming from stars. It certainly could be one way to communicate. Megastructures, building large structures that have detectable effects on the local environment, like Dyson spheres, could serve both a functional purpose for the civilization and act as a beacon to others. There's speculation around concepts like quantum entanglement for faster-than-light communication, though current understanding suggests it's not possible. And there are the consequences of meeting an extraterrestrial race. What would happen to humanity? Would we change? Would we care? It goes without saying, contact with extraterrestrial beings would be one of the most significant events in human history, and it would have profound, far-reaching implications for our planet and our civilization. While it's impossible to predict all the consequences with some certainty, there are some potential outcomes that could occur if contact with aliens was made. The knowledge that we're not alone in the universe could promote a sense of global unity. The shared realization of our common humanity might lead to greater cooperation among nations and reduce conflicts. We might not know if the aliens we just made contact with will suddenly appear at our cosmic doorstep. Earth might need to enhance its defenses and security measures in case of hostile or unintended interactions with advanced alien civilizations. Depending on the interactions and capabilities of the alien civilization, contact could pose an existential threat to humanity, just like you've seen in those alien invasion movies. Potential alien disease and their impact on Earth's ecosystems and human health would need to be addressed. Don't forget that in War of the Worlds, a tiny bacteria wiped out the invaders. The same could happen to us with contact. It's an interesting thing to consider, but contact with aliens may also challenge traditional religious and philosophical beliefs. Some religious doctrines might need to be reinterpreted or adapted to incorporate the existence of extraterrestrial life. Religion might just be erased from existence entirely. However, on the other hand, contact with aliens could benefit the human race, assuming the alien civilization would be willing to share their technology. The exchange of knowledge and technology between Earth and alien civilizations could lead to rapid advancements in science and technology. We might gain access to new energy sources, medical breakthroughs, and a deeper understanding of the universe. That said, we want to ask our viewers, what do you think? Do you think we'll ever get a signal from an advanced civilization? And if we did, would they wipe us out? Or would we find a way to finally live in peace? Make sure to sound off in the comments.
This episode of Black Files is brought to you by Negative. 1. Up until that point, the Smithsonian was under the direction of John Wesley Powell, a geologist famous for exploring the Grand Canyon. Powell had spent a lot of time with the Winnebago Indians, and he found them to be thoughtful and intelligent. So Powell and the Smithsonian actually promoted the idea that Native Americans, who were at the time being exterminated in the Indian Wars, were descended from advanced civilizations who communicated with and traded with cultures all over the country, and possibly all over the world. This widespread dispersion of culture is called diffusionism, which the Smithsonian supported. But then Powell appointed Cyrus Thomas as the director of the Eastern Mound Division at the Smithsonian, and then things got political. Thomas wasn't a fan of Native Americans. He thought of them as nothing more than howling savages. Thomas thought it was impossible for savages from one side of the Mississippi to visit savages on the other side. And to think that people as primitive as Native Americans could sail over an ocean was just ridiculous. This is called isolationism. Isolationism says that civilizations develop independently from each other and have very little contact with other civilizations, especially across ocean. Now, John Wesley Powell nominating Cyrus Thomas to the Smithsonian first appears in an article written by David Childress in 1993. The article caught fire and has been in circulation ever since. And that doesn't mean Childress is wrong, but I do get suspicious when stories about the 19th 19th century don't emerge until the late 20th century. So have the authorities been suppressing knowledge that the Americas were once inhabited by advanced civilizations? Civilizations who made contact with cultures around the world? Well, to get this answer, we're going to need a sweet potato.
Whoa. Do I have sea monkeys in my ears? Or did you just say sweet potato?
For over 100 years, the Smithsonian and mainstream archaeology has supported isolationists, that the cultures that emerged in North America did not have contact with Central America or South America, and definitely did not contact cultures across the oceans. It's absurd to even think it. But the Smithsonian has a problem. The sweet potato. Sweet potatoes are native to the Americas, but an ancient sweet potato was found in the Cook Islands, which are in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The potato was carbon dated to the year 1000. That would mean that 500 years before Columbus, a Native American tribe traveled across the Pacific and landed in Polynesia and brought sweet potatoes with them. Or Polynesians traveled to the Americas and back. The counter-argument is that the sweet potato fell off a boat near Central America and floated to Polynesia over 5,000 miles.
It's one lucky potato.
Linguists have found that the word for sweet potato in the early Polynesian languages is koala. In the American dialects, even more compelling is DNA analysis of Polynesian chickens. In 2007, chicken bones were found at an excavation site in Chile. The DNA of the bones matched chickens from the Pacific Islands of Samoa and Tonga, and were carbon dated to between 1304 and 1425, before the Spanish arrived in the world. In 2019, South American chickens were studied and found to have an unknown genetic component. It turned out that component was from chickens found on Easter Island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The study was so astounding that research was done on human DNA. And in 2020, the study showed that some Polynesian people had DNA inherited from people who lived in Colombia about 800 years ago. Specifically, Polynesians share DNA with the Zenu tribe, who lived in Colombia on the Caribbean side, not even the Pacific Ocean side. It's too much to cover in this episode, but there's evidence of Chinese contact with the New World in 1200 BC, or Indian contact in 2000 BC, and an Arab contact in the 9th century. There are even old maps from the Arabs and Turks, like the Mary Reese map, that show North and South America 1,000 years before Columbus was born. And there's much more. Some mummies have been found with traces of coca and nicotine. A re-examination of the mummy of Ramses II in the 1970s revealed the presence of fragments of tobacco leaves in his abdomen. Coca and tobacco are native to the Americas. The mainstream science says an archaeologist handling the mummy must have spilled his pipe. It's what they say. Now remember, we did an episode on Egyptian artifacts allegedly discovered in the Grand Canyon in 1909. The Smithsonian denies this and claims the whole story is a hoax. But for some reason, the part of the Grand Canyon where the discovery was made is off limits. You can't even rely on it. If you do wander into the area, within a few minutes, unmarked planes and helicopters appear in an area where flying is not allowed. I'll link to the episode below, which goes into detail. You'll even see the planes and helicopters I'm talking about. Once again, those artifacts were sent to the Smithsonian, and nobody knows what happened. In 1990, a law was passed, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. This law says that any federal agency in possession of Native American cultural items, including human remains or sacred objects, will be returned to the tribes upon request. Great! The Smithsonian is a federal agency. So can we get all the skeletons from Ohio and have a look? Nope. United States Code, Title 25, Chapter 32, Section 3001, subsections 4 and 8 state.
Subsection 4. Federal agency means any department, agency, or instrumentality of the United States. Such term does not include the Smithsonian Institution. Subsection 8. Museum means any institution or state or local government agency, including any institution of higher learning, that receives federal funds and has possession of or control over Native American cultural items. Such term does not include the Smithsonian Institution or any other federal agency.
The law requiring the government to return skeletons to the tribes, the Smithsonian, is exempt. So if history books need to be rewritten, don't look to the Smithsonian for help. And don't take it mainstream science, and especially the media, have a playbook.
huge hit. It explores the theory that ancient advanced cultures existed thousands of years ago, but were wiped out in the Great Flood of the Younger Dryas. Now, you can agree with this theory or disagree with it. Either way is fine with me. But wherever you stand, we can all agree that it's an interesting theory worthy of discussion, right? Well, wrong. The Guardian reviewed the series in an article titled Ancient Apocalypse is the most dangerous show on Netflix. Now, they are stage one, criticize. Not only should we not discuss alternate theories, it's actually dangerous to discuss them. But people like us don't care about criticism. We don't care what the media thinks. So they have to escalate to stage two, marginalize. That same article has a spicy subtitle which read, "A show with a truly preposterous theory is one of the streaming giant's biggest hits, and it seems to exist solely for conspiracy theorists." So if you believe in it, or even are interested in this preposterous subject, marginalize that conspiracy theorists. The same article speculates that people who are curious about civilizations and the same as flat earthers. Conspiracy theories. ABC ran with it. Ancient Apocalypse series uses racist ideologies. Now, I watched and enjoyed the documentaries. I enjoy discussing alternate history and life before the Younger Dryas War. I'm not racist, are you? I don't care what color the people were before the flood. I just want to know about them. I don't just think I'm saying calling someone racist without evidence is very much in style now. But because that word is thrown around so much, that attack is also losing its teeth. So you criticize that didn't work. You marginalize that didn't work. You attack it didn't work. That leaves stage one, which does work. Censorship. It's right there in the article where the author poses the question, why is this being allowed? What does he mean allowed? What does he want allowed in this speech? Netflix? The government? I suspect I know the answer. Now, I don't agree with all of Graham Hancock's assertions laid out in the documentary, but all of them are worthy of discussion. Mainstream media and science disagrees. These discussions are preposterous, dangerous, and racist somehow, so censored. For 100 years, Egyptologists proudly claimed ancient Egypt as the first major civilization, with a minor shout-out to the Sumerians who were there 1,000 years earlier. Any culture older than that was nonsense, and discussion was censored. But then Göbekli Tepe was discovered in Turkey, and is found to be 5,000 years older than Sumeria. Yeah, that was embarrassing. And Kubla Tarla was discovered, also in Turkey. That culture dates back to over 12,000 years ago. That's a period of time called the Pleistocene. And we were taught this was the time of the cavemen. But in Kubla Tarla, they understood agriculture and animal husbandry. They could cut stone, and they engaged in city planning. A few years ago, a sewer system was discovered. These weren't cavemen. They lived in houses built around a central religious center. A Netflix documentary discussing different theories isn't dangerous. But articles by mainstream television writers who get their facts from mainstream scientists, those articles are dangerous. They're dangerous because they suppress debate, which in turn suppresses discovery. I'm so glad the archaeologists who found Okulu didn't read internet news. Otherwise, those racist conspiracy theorists might never have found what is, so far, the oldest culture on Earth. A culture that emerged, by the way, right after the Great Flood of the Younger Dryas. As more time passes, more evidence emerges to support theories about alternate history. If giants walk the Earth, sooner or later, that too will be discovered. But mainstream media will do everything it can to prevent that news from getting out. If The Guardian, NBC, ABC, USA Today, CNN, and all the others continue to be wrong over and over again, maybe we have to start asking the question about those articles. Should they be allowed?
ape hypothesis. And his book, The Fruit of the Gods, was one of the early recognitions that psychedelics may have been the trigger that took our ancestor out of millions of years of boredom and put them on the path that we recognize as modern humanity.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly reasonable thing. Also, the way that psychedelics are very helpful with depression is very interesting. And why is that the case? Depression, and I speak from experience because I've suffered myself from a long period of depression back in the early 90s. Depression is a very narrow, rigid frame of mind where you get locked into recurring patterns of thought and they're very negative, and you keep on repeating them to yourself. You start hating yourself, and you just can't bear anything. You're locked, and you can't escape from it. And what psychedelics seem to do is that they break that pattern. They just break it completely. And in this case, for depression, what seems to work best is a massive dose rather than microdosing. Microdosing is great as well.
You have to snap yourself out.
You got to snap yourself out of it.
There's also I think in depressive states, there's a narcissism wrapped into it.
Maybe so.
Not a narcissism in terms of I'm the best, look at me, everything's about me, but in the negative side of that.
It's all about you still.
It's just that constant negative thought. But taking and having a psychedelic experience will make you realize maybe how small you are in the grand scheme of things, or how you are intertwined into the fabric of humanity. So you can break out of that. Yeah, I like that.
Death will disconnect you from the universe conspiring against you.
Exactly.
You're not that important.
And if you belong to a species that has been making the same kind of stone tool without any changes for more than 1 million years, two things are happening. Clearly cultural information is being passed down, and clearly you're locked in a very narrow frame. And then suddenly it changes, and our ancestors start producing this extraordinary cave art, this amazing cave art. Whether you're talking about that site Serrania de la Lindosa in Colombia, or whether you're talking about Lascaux Cave in France, the art is stunning, and it is classically psychedelic art. It is featuring geometry, patterns of swirling dots, zigzag lines. There's Serrania de la Lindosa, and there's one of the extinct Ice Age megafauna with the arrow pointing at it up there. And the geometry that's in there, the swirling dots, the sort of interlinked chains that are shown on there on the left. These are all classic psychedelic visions. Very often, as people enter a deeply altered state of consciousness, it starts with geometry and patterns, and then it manifests more into entities. And those entities are often very anthropic in form. Greek therion, wild beast, anthropos, man. They're part human, part animal form. Not something that you see every day, but something that is very common, frequently common, very common in Egyptian art, and very, very common in deeply altered states of consciousness brought on by psychedelics, is the encounter with entities who then appear to communicate with us. And again, this is where the archaeologists roll their minds, because they like to think that consciousness is entirely local to the brain. It's all manufactured by the brain, and this is just our brain on drugs. Whereas in fact, the opposite seems to be true. The brain seems to be acting as a receiver for consciousness rather than as a manufacturer of consciousness.
And what does that mean?
Well, what it means is that we have to function in a very tough physical universe. This is this world. We gotta know the laws of physics, even if we don't know them, as written down in scientific textbooks. We gotta know that if we bump into that wall, it's gonna hurt. We've got to understand all of that. And naturally, our main focus is on our physical survival in this physical realm. And what's useful for that is what is rightly called the alert problem-solving state of consciousness. But there are many other states of consciousness too that are available to us, and psychedelics unleash a completely different state of consciousness from the alert problem-solving state of consciousness. And in that state of consciousness, we have these extraordinary experiences, and amongst those experiences, the most important are the encounters with entities that communicate with us. Now, we have a problem in trying to decide what is going on here. A very important project just underway at Imperial College in London, and another project that's going to be launched in Colorado, I think in Denver itself, within this year, where human volunteers, I hope to be one of them in Colorado. They turned me down in London because I've suffered from epilepsy since 2017, and there's no indication whatsoever that DMT would cause epilepsy, and I've smoked loads of DMT, and I know it doesn't cause epilepsy. But understandably, having gone through all the legal hoops to get permission, they don't want me dying in their, in their lab.
Yeah.
So they've not accepted me as a volunteer, but I'm hoping I might get accepted as a volunteer here in America. What it is extended release DMT, DMTX. DMT is normally
so it's just going to keep you high.
Keep you high for an hour.
Instead of, what is DMT, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
How long does it feel when you're high? 5 minutes, 10 minutes on DMT.
When you're in the DMT space, it can feel like forever.
Some an hour is almost horrifying.
Does time not exist? Well, yes, this is what many of the volunteers say, is that it's an alarming prospect to be in that space for an hour. They're being delivered in by drip constantly and directly into their bloodstream. They can signal at any time, I've had enough, if they're really feeling overwhelmed. But by and large, most of the volunteers went through with it. I moderated a panel with 4 of the volunteers.
Anything interesting that
there's a gentleman called Andrew Gallimore who's invented the technology that's going to be used in Colorado. Yes, the very interesting thing is that all appear to be meeting essentially the same entities.
These are the gnome machine elves.
They might be machine elves, they might be gnomes, they might be therianthropes, but they're playful, they're tricksy, they're tricksters, and they convey knowledge, and they're also moral teachers. This is the funny thing. They make us confront our baggage.
How so?
Well, I can say in my case, I recently had an experience with the other kind of DMT, very recently, which is 5-MeO DMT. The DMT we're talking about is NN-DMT, and that is the one that most frequently produces entity encounters and the sense of telepathic communication with entities. And science is not in a position to write that off. Quantum physics is looking at the possibility of multiple dimensions, very open to that possibility. Maybe what's happening is that our consciousness is getting retuned by DMT to gain access to dimensions of reality that are normally close to us. We think reality is just this, but actually it's all this. And in a deeply altered state of consciousness, the need for the alert problem-solving mindset is now down, and we can open up to other areas of reality. Who knows what's going on there? But the issue is, are people learning something new in this state? This would touch on the question of whether psychedelics are and getting it going. I would cite the case, very well-known case of Kerry Mullis, polymerase chain reaction PCR test, which has been fundamental for all DNA work subsequently. He admitted openly that he would never have made that discovery if he hadn't taken LSD. LSD gave him that discovery.
You said you recently had an experience with the other type
with 5-MeO.
Yeah. What was that?
It was beautiful. Okay, so 5-MeO DMT is a bit controversial because in the basic form it comes from the secretions of a particular kind of toad. And those secretions can be scraped off and smoked directly. In that case, the smoke is quite cloudy, and you're ingesting not only the 5-MeO DMT but other elements that are in the secretions of the toad. It's possible to have synthetic 5-MeO DMT, which is pure, which doesn't have the other elements in the secretions of the toad, and which doesn't involve killing toads. And that's the kind of 5-MeO DMT that I had. Was in the pure synthetic form. I was alarmed before I did it because I've had alarming experiences on the other DMT, NN-DMT. Our facilitator helped me out and helped others in the group out by giving us MDMA first. We had
We're getting it in, Grant.
We're totally getting it in. It's only the second time in my life I've ever experienced MDMA.
Oh, it's great, isn't it?
What a great
it's
it's wonderful. Yeah. It feels so just overwhelmed with love. It's just such a beautiful thing. So we had that 3 or 4 hours before we had the 5-MeO DMT. And then 3 at a time we lay down and we first sat up to take one massive deep inhalation on the pipe and then hold it in and then release it. And then my wife Sandra can do this and sit up. She does it with NN-DMT and she does it. She did it with the 5-MeO as well. Just sit up, and she does these mudras. Very, very present. I have to lie down. I can't be seated. I can't be standing up. I got to lie down flat. And I actually pulled on an eye mask as I was lying down. And then weeks because I suffered very badly from it. In fact, it's a kind of curse. And I wanted to focus on that. Maybe there's somewhere that it could affect me. And I did feel, perhaps it was my imagination, but I did feel fingers massaging the back of my head where migraines often start, and then massaging my temple. And then abruptly it stopped, and it returned to the issue of my relationships. And I thought that it stopped like that because the 5-MeO DMT had fixed my migraines. But the very next day, I had another massive migraine, and I think what happened was that 5-MeO DMT was saying, actually, we can't fix this. Let's move on. It was an extraordinary experience. I wouldn't recommend anybody to do it completely alone or any kind of DMT. And I think it's important to have a responsible facilitator who's used to handling people in this state. Everybody responds in different ways. Some people can really freak out. It's not necessarily a bad thing to freak out. It's not necessarily a bad thing to feel fear. But you want somebody around who's a sitter, who understands the medicine and who can help you through that.
You said earlier that it removes you from the problems.
We're not dealing with the problems that we have internally. We're not dealing with the trauma, the relationship, those things. So it's often we're blaming them on other people. Exactly. Yeah. So what's kind of interesting to me is that even the way that you describe it, it's put a pause on those problems that we feel like we have to solve every second to do kind of like self-work. I wonder what is on the other end of self-work. Like I wonder when you get through a lot of those things that you need to work on, where else they can take you. Because I don't think they go, you're good, see you later. Maybe you start to seek some of that. Maybe you need to deal with all of your stuff before you're ready for that higher consciousness.
Or maybe both things can happen all the time, because virtually every powerful psychedelic journey I have, and ayahuasca is certainly that. My last ayahuasca journey was in 2019. DMT, and in DMT more recently, and then 5-MeO DMT, they all sooner or later deal with my baggage. I carry a lot of baggage. Those of us who carry less baggage tend to have a gentler trip, but in my case, it's right in my face, and you got to deal with it.
And you keep going after it.
I keep going after it because it's very useful teaching, and I keep slipping back into bad habits.
So it's a reminder.
Yeah, and that's really important to recognize that these substances are not a magic pill. It's going to fix you overnight.
I think people use them as that.
They're not.
I think they've become trendy in a way, and I think a lot of people are seeking out ayahuasca because they're like, hey, I have this block, and if I just do this ayahuasca, it's going to fix it for me, and then it's done.
Chances are it'll be done for a few weeks, and then you'll fall back into it.
It's like a chiropractor or something.
You have to carry on the work. Yeah, the real work begins after the session.
So it's a recognition of what's going on.
It's a recognition.
That's right. And then you have to do that work.
And then you have to do that work. But as to novelty, I mentioned Kerry Wallace and the Polymerase chip.
The speed of sound, it might be half a mile high, whatever, it's just going to just water destroys everything, knocks out all the cities. You probably have, forget electricity and grids and stuff. I actually think this is why that some governments around the world are making these giant underground bases, which may have also been what happened in the past.
That's what happened in Turkey, right?
Well, Derinkuyu, yeah, but also Egypt. There's evidence for this all over the world, and there's all sorts of strange
Colorado,
stories.
The airport.
Yeah, Colorado. So the airport, the Cheyenne Mountain up there in Colorado. It's like where NORAD is and everything. There's giant underground bunkers. You can go. I saw a TikTok of a guy driving a big ass truck, and you can just like huge.
This isn't even conspiracy. This is known, right? Like it's like a doomsday bunker.
Well, I don't know if you say doomsday, but yeah, it's an underground bunker that's as big as, or twice as big as the airport. Or
yeah, and they can hold like 4,000 people or something like that. This is end of civilization shit.
Well, the government's thinking about it. I saw an RFP. I know a guy who knows a guy who's involved in some. They put out an RFP, like a request for proposal for tech companies to go. We need a drone system, kind of Prometheus movie, where they throw it up in the air and runs off and maps these underground. But they wanted that type of system that can work without GPS because they're interested in fighting wars in underground cities.
Because they think
that may be what happened, where it might go in the future. So they're trying to
crazy. They're thinking about war even after a match.
I mean, like,
that's us, man.
If there's an extinction level event, there's going to be violence followed very quickly.
You would love a series about this. It
you are on the planet, how you luck holds wherever you are. I mean,
what were you saying about the Turkey thing or
Derinkuyu?
Yeah.
Well, so there's evidence for underground cities, ancient underground cities as well.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely places like Cappadocia and Derinkuyu in Turkey that could have held hundreds of thousands of people.
Have you seen any of these?
No.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
So they basically carve cities out underground with access to air and water. There's underground rivers. They knew where the river was and the water line was. So you have everything you need. But
and that speaks to being very advanced. One underground city, we know where the water is, we know how to access the water.
And how many people could they hold?
Well, the Derinkuyu, I'm pretty sure, was the figures. I think that's only a tiny part of it. I think it could have been 100. I've heard up to like hundreds of thousands of people, certainly more than 50,000 people. But same thing in Egypt, and there's rumours of this stuff all over the place. I mean, there's giant underground networks of tunnels underneath Saqqara, I think underneath Giza, all over Egypt.
Now, is it possible that they're using this during the time where there's tons of comet impact?
I think that's probably why. I mean, it speaks to someone who they may have known it was coming. Like, you've got these indicators, like if the Sphinx is marking the age of Leo, and you've got these alignments, I mean, they're pointing at that for a reason, because that time period is also that of cataclysm, right? It's, at least in the last precessional cycle, the last 26,000 year period, it kind of lines up to it. And Göbekli Tepe, there's a lot of research done into that side as well. It may be an astronomical calendar, kind of historical one, but it seems to point at this time. It's like they're transmitting a message down through time. It's possible. That's telling us, look at this time, like this time means something. This was bad, like figure it out. And if they knew it was coming, maybe they were preparing these things as, the doomsday bunkers, a place you could survive until the outside was nice enough to come back out and go, hold it.
What's the stone that has the different constellations on it in Göbekli Tepe? Graham talked about it.
Yeah, it's like pillar 13 or pillar
7 or something like
5 or whatever. Yeah, I'm not.
But basically, it has this maybe he might be taking liberties on it, but they have an organization of the constellations that happens to the last time the constellations were organized in that manner. There was a global cataclysm.
Right.
So it's like they're not usually organized like that, but when they are, this is when it was basically go time.
Yeah.
And it lines up with the Younger Dryas.
It's okay. And where do they think Younger Dryas did hit, and what do they think the damage was?
So I think it was a northern hemisphere impact. I think you're mostly looking at ice impacts onto what was the Laurentide and Caldera ice sheets covered most of North America and Canada. I actually think that some of the Great Lakes region, Randall's doing a lot of really good research into what could be actual impact formations in the geology of the northern United States and Canada today. Because the other thing is, we know that that's where a lot of the meltwater from these glaciers came out, right? This is the evidence for. Have you guys ever been up to the Scablands, East Washington State?
No, I've seen the videos. It's crazy.
These giant coulees. You're talking one of these coulees, just one of several of them.
What's a coulee?
A coulee is like a canyon but with no water.
Yep.
Just like this giant, think of the Grand Canyon, much super wide, 1,000-foot high or 800-foot high.
It's also a racist term for Indians in South Africa. So I got a little bit uncomfortable when he kept saying that. But sorry.
It's with a U in it.
Okay, all right, got it.
But it's the channeled Scablands, and it's basically the outwash of this water, this tremendous floods. We know now that this all happened at the end of the Ice Age, but it completely destroyed that environment, carved up, it ripped through this land. You're talking about a single one of these channels, and there were multiple of them. It's 50, 100 times the volume of all the rivers on the Earth at once.
Oh wow!
Almost like a billion cubic feet a minute. At where it all gathered up, it's just the catastrophic flood of this just tore through. The flood, so where it's carved that channel, the actual water was probably 300-400 feet above that, and it just ripped through here.
All the national parks in the United States of America are just remnants from the latest cataclysm.
America.
Cataclysms make some cool shit.
They do.
This is stunning. And if you go down to where was that? Southern Utah and stuff like that, you see these and even. They're not cataclysms, but
Bryce Canyon.
Exactly. The damage from the water damage from canyons creates some stunning.
Why can't it just be gentle erosion over millions of years?
Well, that was the argument for a long time until you had guys like J. Allen Bretz was a catastrophist, and then Randall Carlson's doing a lot of good work in this space, and now this, at least up here in the Channel Scablands, they have swung around. So it's a long story. It comes back to religion, funnily enough, because the story of religion was always catastrophism. right? What's the story in the Bible? It's Noah's flood. It's the Great Flood, right? So that was always where we got our answers from. So you have the age of enlightenment, the age of reason starts. Science has its beginnings. Geology emerges as a fledgling science. And for something like 60, 70 years, the stated goal of geology was to get as far away from the catastrophism of religion as they could. So think of it like a massive overcorrection. They went out there and said, you go out and you have to explain every feature we see on the landscape with gradualism or uniformitarianism, which is the gentle, slow, erosive processes that we see in place today, like the streams slowly eroding stuff, hills and shapes taking form. So that's what ends up in all the textbooks. And some stuff is still explained like that, and it's frankly nonsense. So, but now we're sort of coming back. Thousands of an inch. I'm fine with that too. It's just it's go crazy about the shit. But it's and the results are truly astonishing. What we found by analysing the scans of one of these vases, and it has to have been designed and manufactured with a system that is incredibly precise. They can get things down to thousandths of an inch. Now, bear in mind, the width of the human hair is between 2 and 3 thousandths of an inch. So you're talking about precision and levels of geometric sort of sophistication that's half the width of a human hair. What is down to 1,000th of an inch? Also, so what you do is, and if you go to base scan, there's a directory called base scan. Or is it? This is just pictures of the base, but I've got a directory called base scan. You look at it and you go, okay, so the top of the vase, we can define how flat that is, right? And we can also say, well, think of that as a horizontal axis. Yep. And then there's the mouth of the vase. And what they do, if you go to vase scan directory, when you scan this thing, that's the vase that we scanned. So if you go to like the second and third picture here, so essentially we're taking the top of that vase, we've mapped like a horizontal axis to it. Now we're mapping a cylinder to the neck of the vase using more than, I think it's 10,000 points of reference. So a very accurate representation of that neck of the vase. And you can compare it to that top. So we know, okay, that cylinder, once you map a geometric object to it, you can perform geometry on it, figure out what's its center line, what's its center point, all that stuff. It's perpendicular to the top of the vase, perfectly within 1,000th of an inch. And then basically the top is really it is super easy. But now you've got, think of it, now this vase we've defined an axis, like a horizontal axis and a vertical axis. Now we can go and map geometric shapes to other parts of